In this video, I take out Nikon's new full-frame mirrorless, the Z7, to do the kind of stuff that I like to do, to chase wildlife around and see if I can capture some birds in flight. In the first half of the video, I use my Nikkor 200 to 500, just an excellent lens. The second half, I use this big old beast, the 500 f4, just amazing piece of glass right here. And I'd like to thank my friends at B&H for lending me this camera so that I could evaluate it and make this video for all of you. There's a link in the description below that goes out to B&H and it highlights all the gear that I use in my videos if you want to go check all that out. And what's really interesting is this entire video was captured on the Z7, including what you see right now. It's got a really good autofocus for video, which is really unheard of with a Nikon camera. So I'm just kind of moving around to demonstrate it, but I'll show you a little bit better because it actually tracks and moves birds that are just acting crazy and erratic. So let's go see what we can find. Nothing quite like a nice misty Florida sunrise to start the day. The mist blocks out a lot of the blue light waves and it leaves you with this awesome looking burning sky. This was also a great chance to test the dynamic range of the Z7, and I would say we have a winner in that department. But let's move a little deeper into the wetlands and see if we can find some early morning bird action in the mist. And of course we can. This is Florida, and these two little blue herons were eager to find an easy meal. Perching high on that dead branch gives this bird the perfect vantage point over the fish-filled water below. A quick leap into the air helped scare the fish to the surface, but this was a failed attempt. But there are plenty of other hungry birds leaping about, like this one, who seems to have had a mid-air accident. How nice. And this one shows a nice wing spread, but that misty air is robbing the images of clarity. We need just a little more light to help burn off that mist. And there we go, that's much better. We get some nice golden light on this little blue heron who managed to pull a fish from the water. There have been a lot of videos popping up talking about the autofocus ability of the Z7. Here's an entire series in not so great light where the camera did a fine job of not only following this white-faced little blue heron, but keeping it in focus as well. Is the focus system perfect? No. And I think the real problem here is improper use. This is a very different camera, and trying to use it like a D500 or a D850 just doesn't work well. I'll talk more about that at the end of the video. For now, let's see if we can find some more birds. One of the great things about birding in Florida is the ability to just take a nice casual stroll through nature where you see some awesome stuff, like this little green heron. I grabbed this shot right before a wasp of some kind attacked the bird. You can see the wasp here in this shot. The attack happened right after I grabbed the shot, but it caused the bird to take to the air where I managed to grab a couple more shots of this bird in flight. I've been trying to get a little green heron in flight for quite a while now and finally managed to grab a few. Immediately after that, I walked up on this cute little palm warbler who had just captured a spider. These little birds are always a little difficult to photograph because they bounce in and out of the sticks. I managed to get a few good shots, but here's my first gripe on the Z7, and this could just be an oversight. I like to assign two buttons to two different focus areas. I like to use the AF on button as my primary method of focus, and will often assign a wide focus area to this button. I also like to assign single point focus to one of the buttons on the front of the camera here. This makes it very easy to focus on birds like this one when they bounce around in the sticks. This option isn't in the Z7 menu, at least not like it is with the D500 or D850. Like here's an example. Here's the Z7 and I can't find it. And here is the option on the D500. You can choose every focus area and assign it to this front button here. Again, this could just be an oversight on my part, but if Nikon removed this feature, it really hurts the custom shooting style that I'm used to. Nikon, if you're listening and I'm not doing something wrong here, please add this to a firmware update. The lack of this feature causes too many missed shots and it seems like a step backwards in the custom button layout department. Here's a good example of focus tracking with a busy background. Granted, this bird is white, but the Z7 did well in this instance. Notice there are only 3 shots in this series. I noticed the Z7 seemed to perform best in short controlled bursts of 3 to 4 shots each. If you shoot in longer bursts, the buffer fills up much faster, and you'll notice a significant lag in the electronic viewfinder. This camera is not a D500 and can't be used in the same manner. I found that short controlled bursts still worked quite well, and I was able to get some great action shots, which are coming up in a bit. But for now, let's check out this curious female RedWinged Blackbird who appears to be sorting through some cattail fluff. It is a little too early for nesting, but maybe this bird is just a forward thinker, or perhaps she's looking for food. Either way, she sure is a beauty. I've always been very impressed with the Nikkor 200-500 when used as a makeshift macro lens on the D850 or the D500, and it works equally as well on the Z7. Check out the detail on that dragonfly. And here's a young Basilisk Lizard. These lizards aren't native to Florida, and much of South Florida is now overrun with various invasive reptiles just like this one. By this time it was getting a little late, and the light was starting to get a little bit on the harsh side, so I decided to make my way out of the wetlands, but was quickly stopped by one of my favorite birds, the always impressive Osprey. And there's the Osprey now, passing over a fish-filled pond. And of course, there's a young bald eagle watching the Osprey. The Osprey slows down a bit and hovers before taking the plunge and dropping into the water like a rock. First attempt, the Osprey comes up empty, but immediately dives again, and this time it successfully grabs a fish from the water, and then the chase begins. Eagles are the bullies in this area. They often wait for an Osprey to do all of the work, and then they try to steal the fish. I was basically shooting directly into the sun here, which is very challenging on any camera's autofocus system, and the Z7 kept up quite nicely. The Osprey drops down and uses its tail feathers as a shield to sort of hide the fact that it still has a fish, and the young, unexperienced eagle falls for it and gives up the chase by flying away. All of the shots you've seen here so far were shots with the Z7, the FTZ adapter, and the Nikkor 200-500. Let's try out the Nikon 500 f4 at a different location in some nice afternoon light. Hopefully I can find some reddish egrets. I arrive just after 4 o'clock in the afternoon and immediately find a hungry snowy egret who has captured a small minnow. And in classic form, this bird tosses the minnow back down its throat. This looked like the perfect opportunity to test the autofocus ability of the Z7 with video, and I have to say, this is by far the most impressive feature of this camera. The video autofocus can actually follow and keep a good locked focus on an erratic moving bird. This is a first for Nikon, and it's just absolutely amazing. Let me show you. This was shot handheld at 1080p, 120 frames per second, and the Z7 never missed a beat. It happened so fast though, and that's why I shot it at 120 frames per second. Here's the same footage, slowed down. The snowy egret moved well out of the plane of focus here, and I'm really amazed at how well the Z7 kept the focus locked on this bird throughout its entire erratic behavior, all the way until the bird caught and swallowed its fish, and I stopped recording. Very, very impressive, Nikon. Let's see if we can find some reddish egrets and try the same thing. Here's a reddish egret now, and this one is hot on the trail of a small needlefish. These birds are just amazing to watch. They dance and throw their wings around, and they make for some great photo opportunities. They're also a great way to test the autofocus system of a camera, and the Z7 did another great job here, as did the reddish egret. It managed to catch that needlefish and swallow it down. Sometimes, though, reddish egrets are so busy trying to catch a fish that they miss, and other birds sneak in and grab them, just like that snowy egret did. Again, that happened so fast. Let's see that sneaky snowy egret again in slow motion. That reddish egret is a little preoccupied, but the snowy egret doesn't mind sneaking in and grabbing a fish. Awesome. Another reddish egret flies in and quickly grabs another needlefish. Now I have two of the most awesome wading birds right in front of me, and this one, it's really crazy and erratic, but the Z7 kept the bird in focus the entire time. It looks like I have a new skill set to learn now that Nikon has a very good autofocus system for video. Keeping these fast-moving birds in the viewfinder is tough. Our first reddish egret is back on the scene and as crazy and erratic as ever. These birds never disappoint. And what just happened there? Let's slow it down and take a closer look. It looks like our reddish egret is doing its regular dance here, but then it takes to the air and is graceful as ever, and here it comes. Look, a full circle twist. What a crazy bird. And the Z7 never once lost focus on this erratic behavior. That's just awesome. It was getting late, and I wanted to grab a few still shots in the late afternoon light, and these two birds would make for the perfect subjects. For the most part, these funny birds are the ones scaring all the fish, but this time things were different. This large fish came tearing through the shallow water and really scared the smaller of the two reddish egrets. Our other reddish egret was much more graceful in its attempt to catch a late afternoon snack, and the lighting coming from behind this amazing bird was really making for some excellent photos with interesting rim lighting. The dance became ever more graceful when the reddish egret lightly took to the air, giving me this amazing shot where you can clearly see the brilliant colors of the setting sun through the bird's feathers. This shot reminds me of the old snake charmer charming a cobra out of a basket, but in this case, the reddish egret's graceful dance is charming this needlefish right out of the water. This bird's ballet-like dancing worked perfectly, and it scored a nice juicy meal. But the other smaller reddish egret wanted in on the bounty, and now I have 2 reddish egrets fighting just like siblings. I would have never guessed that a great blue heron would walk into the shot. I'm still not too sure what this big bird was doing. Maybe it was hoping to steal a fish while the 2 reddish egrets fought. But the fight didn't last long because the larger reddish egret managed to grab a fish, and just like a little brother or sister, the smaller reddish egret is right there tagging behind. I love the late afternoon lighting coming through the head feathers on these birds. It adds so much character. They almost look like punk rockers sporting orange-tipped hair and mohawks. These 2 characters continued to fight like siblings, and just like most cases of sibling rivalry, the larger one seemed to be getting all of the treats here, and of course, the smaller one is eager to voice its disapproval. What a great way to end my first day out with the Nikon Z7. So what did you think about that? That was a lot of fun. Was there a favorite image that you had? I definitely had one. I really liked the shot of the reddish egret with the light coming through its feathers. That was absolutely incredible. And the focus for video with the Nikon Z7 is just absolutely amazing. Older Nikon cameras like the D850 or the D500, focus for video is pretty much pointless. It doesn't work. You can't use it. This is completely different. With all that said though, there are a few things about the camera that I didn't really like, or actually just one thing that I can think of. In order to save battery, the camera will go to sleep. And when it does this, the only way to get it back on is to activate one of the buttons. And it takes about 2 seconds to wake up. And there were many instances when I missed a shot because the camera wasn't awake yet. And I know it's only 2 seconds, but a lot of times you gotta be really, really fast, and it just wasn't fast enough at waking up. I understand why this is happening. It's conserving battery. It's just part of the camera, I guess. And the other thing I'd like to mention is using this camera is very, very different than using, say, the D500 or the D850. Typically for action or birds in flight or any kind of really fast-moving wildlife on the D500, I'll use group autofocus for the area mode. On the D850, I'll use like D25 or D9. These work excellent for movement. There's a dynamic mode on the Z7, but it doesn't seem to work well for any kind of movement. In fact, I couldn't get it to work at all. But where I had the best success was with a focus area called wide. And in some instances, it was actually better than the D850 or the D500 because you have a larger area that you can keep your subject in. Like, so if the bird is here, there's this big box that you can keep around the bird, and it was really, really easy to follow. Whereas like on the D850, the box that you have to keep on the bird is very, very small. So it was very good in that sense. Is this camera better than the D850 or the D500? I don't think so, not for images. It's not far behind, but it's not quite there yet. Where it really shines is video. The video is absolutely amazing. I'm not really sure what they're doing in there to make it autofocus like it does, but it autofocused and kept focus on just some crazy erratic birds. That's gonna be really, really helpful for me because I like to do a lot of video. Let me know if there's anything you would like me to experiment with the Z7. If so, just let me know in the comments below, and click that thumbs up if you haven't done that yet. Share this video, that's always helpful. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that. I got a lot of really cool stuff planned. And as usual, thanks for watching. If you want to know how I set up my D500 and my D850 for birds in flight, check out my website for easy to follow setup guides. And if you want to come with me and capture your own images of birds in Florida, I offer workshops in fall and winter. Check out my website for details, and thanks for watching.